What is going on, podcast listeners? I'm back for another episode of The Freedom Formula. Today, we have an absolute powerhouse in the senior care franchising world, Charles Thurston. He's the COO of Wisdom Senior Care. Wisdom Senior Care has been around for 19 years, and Charles is going to bring us a lot of experience in growing in-home senior care businesses. Charles, excited to have you.
Neel, great. Thank you so much. I'm just excited to be here just to collaborate and share with you about Wisdom Senior Care and franchising.
Love it. Charles, you and I connected probably just like a couple months ago, and I've always really enjoyed hearing your perspective because I feel like you have a lot of on-the-ground experience when it comes to digital marketing and helping franchisees out. Before we dive into all of that, which I'm stoked to talk about, can you tell me a little bit of background on you, who you are? What is the business you're running? Just let's start from the top.
Okay, great. Thanks, Neel. Well, my background is in business management and sales. I've always been a networker most of my adult young life, college educated. But one thing, when people know about Charles, I love to have fun, but I'm serious too, especially about what I'm passionate about. So Wisdom Senior Care started in February of 2006. I came aboard with my wife, Carolyn Thurston, who is the founder CEO, in 2007. And we worked diligent and hard in the in-home senior care industry. And we did that very hard up until 2016, where Carolyn basically got burned out. And Neel, what had happened was she was at a crossroads. So I said, let's pray, let's talk about it. Now, in our business model is serving seniors in the in-home senior space with non-skilled. And what that means is that it's private pay and long-term care insurance. So we have a very good model. So then going back to 2016, she's like, well, Charles, what else can I do? And I said, well, let's look. We read a book called E-Myth, and that book opened our eyes about franchising. And that's when this journey started, when we found the International Franchise Association. Now, here's what's exciting, Neel. During that time frame, the state of North Carolina came to Carolyn and asked if she'll be willing to be an instructor. What that means is if you wanted to start an in-home senior care company in North Carolina, you have to take a mandated one-day class because they want to assure that people at least know that they're in business and the right type of business. So what happened, we had entrepreneurs, partners, franchise brands come through this class. And of course, I was kicking and screaming because I'm like, we don't have but 24 hours a day. But it opened our eyes that a lot of people wanted to be in their own business. So springing it ahead again with the 2016, 2017, we started that journey on becoming a franchisor. And if you notice, what happens, a lot of times you'll talk to family and friends first because those are the ones who really would validate you as a person and your character. So our number one franchisee, we've known them for quite a while. They're an Asian couple, but they took us on faith and we took them on faith. And then it starts springboarding from there.
Very cool. And you guys are at, I believe, 12 franchise units right now. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have 12 units. We actually have 10 in the state of North Carolina. We have a multi-unit as well, which has a location in South Carolina. And we're located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and in Long Island, New York.
I love that. Charles, I want to dive into this model. So I don't know if you know this. Most people don't know this because I haven't talked about it much. Years ago, a decade plus ago, I was evaluating different business models. Before I started Made This, which is the cleaning company I run, I had a business plan written up for in-home healthcare because I was looking online and oh, this is a good industry. There's a ton of baby boomers. I forgot, it's 10,000 people retiring every day or some crazy stat. This is a no-brainer. And I actually went down the path of looking up how to open up in-home healthcare. And then, mid-20s, I was very going different ways. So I'm like, oh, I'll try this, I'll try this. And I kind of got lost in the process, but I always like the model. And it is very similar somewhat to what we're doing for a maid service model. But can you talk to everyone about what is non-medical in-home healthcare versus medical in-home healthcare? Which one are you guys doing? Pros and cons, just kind of explain the model as it is.
Sure. I'll be glad to, Neel. Thank you. So in-home senior care is non-skilled. That means we are unable to like administer drugs
Mm-hmm.
or like IV. With non-skilled, we can do your basics, companionship, bathing, grooming, dressing. We're there to assist that client. And what I mean by that is that we're help them with their daily activities of living. And so that's helping them prepare their meals in the morning, helping them get situated with their different needs in their home. We can do transportation. We can help give them medication reminders, and then just the basic needs that they will need as a friend and a companion. Now, skill means that it's a little bit more intensive because you have to have that nurse that's registered nurse involved, meaning that they can administer medications. The skill will also mean that they can maybe do different blood transfusions, things of that nature. Of course, I'm not a registered nurse, so I'm not the validator totally, but I do know the difference between the skilled and non-skilled.
Is non-skilled, like, I don't want to say the word better, but is it easier to recruit labor for non-skilled? Is that why you guys went into it?
Yeah, we went into well, one thing with skill, you have to have it's called a certificate of need.
Mm.
Because you have to have a certificate to be able to administer skilled services. And to be honest with you, those are kind of hard to come by unless you know
Got
a
it.
company that's getting ready to resell. But non-skilled, it does make it easier, just like you said. Now you have different types. For our model is private pay. You do have some non-skilled providers that deal with Medicaid, that also may deal with different respite type of services. We can do a portion of that, but we strictly deal with private pay.
Got it. I'm curious, the average client, unlike, are you going there daily? Are you sending someone there daily to help them out? Is there certain hours per the day, per the week? Like, how do you calculate billable hours, or how does it work in your industry?
Sure. And Neel, what's so cool about that is that we're very flexible. Um, Before the COVID per se, um, you could have clients from 1 hour up to 24 hours. Our bread and butter, our sweet spot is 24 hours. But after COVID, it made it a little bit tougher with the labor force. So
Mm.
some providers, what they'll do, they may put a minimum like 2 hours or 4 hours. We don't believe in that. We believe in meeting that client on their needs. Now, it makes it a little bit challenging because for 1 hour, by the time that we call our caregivers skilled experts, by the time that skilled
Mm.
expert reaches that home, that hour goes pretty fast, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
But we can pivot and adjust with that client because the ultimate goal is to keep them happy in their homes, but to get it up to 24 hours of care.
24 hours of care on a weekly basis?
Yes, sir. It
Got it.
could be
That's the goal of
weekly.
24 hours.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And in this model, like, can you give me an example of what would be an average amount you charge per hour? If you're able to share, what amount do you pay out to the employee or the caregiver? How does the whole process work in terms of gross margin, top line, things like that?
Sure. Yeah. So the beautiful part about it is that we bill on a weekly basis.
Mm.
And it can range from normally from $30 on up. And we pay our skilled experts that one thing about wisdom, we never pay minimum wage. Anybody that knows in the state of North Carolina is very low. And you have to be able to validate and give quality for the people who work with you and for you.
Mm.
So, it will range from 15 up to like $18. Now, for gross margins, the beautiful part about it, because it's on a weekly basis, it can range, the top line will be over 5 grand a week to
Wow.
normally the low could be probably between $100 to $200. It really depends. Everything is on billable hours. That's how we
And people are
measure.
paying this in cash.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Wow.
sir.
So is most of your billings done where people are paying, let's say, 5 grand in cash per week, or is it going through their insurance?
No, it's all cash. Now, when I made the comment about long-term care insurance,
Hmm.
with our long-term care insurance, what we do is we do that as a, let's say, a extra service for our clients. They still pay the provider, Wisdom Senior Care, upfront first, but we will send their paid invoices and care logs to that long-term care provider just to take the burden off of the client themselves and the family. They have a lot to deal with, just making sure mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, uncle, aunt are okay and getting a good quality of life.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And it's interesting is like, so my niche of maid service, we're targeting a lot of, like, let's say the millennial crowd, maybe Gen X, right? Like still a lot of the digital marketing, online marketing, they want convenience, things like that. I don't know how to market to the elderly population. Like I already get annoyed if my mom asks me like to do tech stuff. I'm like, Mom, like I told you this already. Like just text me. You don't need to call me and leave a voicemail and say, hey, it's mom calling. Like don't do that anymore. Just text me, right? I can't even fathom how do you market to the elderly population. So questions, how do you market to them? Is it also them you're marketing to, or is it their kids?
Well, what's so exciting is that some years ago we were marketing to the actual seniors, but now we actually
Mm,
marketing to the children because that
okay.
children is of that age that can make those decisions.
Um,
So
how do you market to the kids then? Like, what is it, mostly digital? Is it offline? Is there some secret sauce?
sure, sure. Well, we do a combination. We do a lot with digital because they live a fast-paced life. They have their own families that they're loving and working with. But also we do some of the offline where it's going to be different. Well, the first part of marketing will be the actual employees themselves. They in their uniforms. That's a differentiator from some providers. And when they see that good quality of service, they're like, wow, I need your service. So that's one way. Then when we do different events, we do some fundraising. To what I mean by that is if we're with a health fair where we can do like blood pressure checks, that's a way that we can be able to engage with the seniors and the families themselves. And then do community events because that's the most important. The more
Oh,
that they
really?
see us in the community, right, to serve the household and that family, that's how we can get visible.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? It's a very emotional purchase. Like, let's say I'm buying elderly care for my mom. I could go and hit whoever hit me with a Google ad, but I probably want to vet the person, and I'm probably going to take referrals into account more than anything, right? Versus, let's say, cleaning service or HVAC or plumbing. Like, whoever's the most convenient you're going to do, but if someone's taking care of your like loved one, it's going to be more personal, right? Like you kind of got to get out in the community, you got to show face, you got to make referrals, things like that. I'd assume that's the biggest part of it.
Neel, you said it right on the head, buddy. You're absolutely right. In my personal opinion, in-home senior care is very personal because you're not going to have just anybody and everybody coming to your home. And when
Yep.
we can go in there and build that relationship, because one thing we found out, seniors will weed you out within 30 minutes, 30 seconds to a minute. They know whether or
Really?
not you're there to care, yes, versus you're there just to get a paycheck.
So how do you find employees who actually care though? Right? Like that's going to be a big part of it. Is it difficult to find employees who are willing to take care of elderly folk? Is there a lot of training? How's the whole process work?
Sure, sure. We have some very good training. And the first it starts with their mindset. And what was funny, Bill, when we were doing COVID, I always call it the first COVID. We never missed a beat. Our employees wanted to go there and serve those clients. And like I said,
Mm,
you have some maturity, more so with the older generation, but some of the young generation too, that really have a passion for seniors. Because I always say this: if you don't have a passion for seniors, it's not gonna work. Just like I like dogs, but I never grew up with them. So they'll know to
yep.
bite me because I'm not there.
Yeah.
So we do training on about between every 2 weeks, maybe on a quarterly basis, because we do it digitally. We
Okay.
also have apps where they can go in and review to do proper training. We also have our franchisees. We teach them to do in-house training where they can come
Mm,
in maybe once a month or every other month to get some hands-on training, because we also own a nurse aid one school. And with that school, that is trained CNAs.
mm, gotcha. Charles, let me ask you, what is like, what's the hard part of this model, right? Like, from the sound of it, it sounds like, oh, this is awesome. There's a ton of billable hours. You find people who care. You take care of elderly folk. This is like, it's a win-win-win. I'm sure there's really hard stuff. Like, what is the hardest part of this model for an operator?
You said the key right there, Neel. In my opinion, the hardest part is knowing that you're in two businesses.
Mm,
In the business of in-home senior care, but in the franchise world, you're also a franchisee. And as an owner operator, they have to, number one, they have to learn how to be a good networker in their local community. There's
I
no way
see.
you can get around that. You have to
Yeah,
be. Then you put people in place, because Carlos, this is what she always says. The goal is you want to work on your business, not in your business.
hmm,
Because you're going to like this. A blind dog with his note in his mouth can do the basic stuff. But you have to do the things that you have your God-given talents that no one else can do. And that will take you to that next level. I really believe that.
I love that. That's awesome. And then in terms of like when you were operating your own location, is the struggle, is the hard part finding labor? Is it that people call out? Like, what is the part which your franchisees are pulling their hair out right now? Is it, yeah, what's the hardest part of the model?
Yeah, those are the pain points. We get that on probably a daily, definitely weekly basis when you have those employees calling out.
Uh,
But you have to pivot enough to be able to work good communication skills with that client and some more people on the team that can help
mm,
satisfy that need for the clients. But that will be the toughest challenge there. Now, you know what? Every one of our franchisees, they work with the client. Every one
yeah,
of them has worked with the client in one way or the other.
gotcha. Charles, especially in the franchise world, I see a lot of in-home healthcare companies. I don't know. Maybe I just like maybe they're targeting me, or maybe I notice it because that was a business model I was considering at some point. But I'm like, man, there's a lot of in-home healthcare companies. Is there actually a lot of in-home healthcare franchises? And if so, how are you competing against these guys? Some of these guys are massive from what I've seen. What are you guys doing differently?
Well, you're right. We're emerging brand. So one thing that we have a little different than some of the, I call the big players, is we have more territory available.
Mm,
And we believe this. I don't like to really call them competition because it's enough clients out there for everybody. But our
yep.
goal is to dominate where we're located. That's the most important, because in this model, you don't have so much foot traffic. One thing about the in-home senior care, once that client is happy with the service, they stay with you until they transition on. And that's the good thing about it,
Yep.
because you can really springboard with that. We have clients that have been with us over 10 years.
Wow. Over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Charles, if you're open to sharing, what is like top line revenue averages or anything around the financial picture of how large can these businesses go?
Sure, sure. So one thing is, I will say the average median income will be about 675,000. But
In terms of
when
revenue.
you get it, yes, sir, revenue. But when you actually follow the processes and systems, I mean, normally you can get between 2 million and up to 3. The industry
Mm,
average is 3 million. And then after that, you have to start having the mindset looking at multi-unit. Now,
makes
the
sense.
beautiful part about with our brand and our franchisees, they have a different spectrum. We have some at the top line, then we have some that's just getting started, but then we have them all in between. But then it's up to them. They can get in there, and if they have that faith and really work smart and hard, I always tell anybody this: once you get to these 1,000 hours plus, then it's really just repetition. And you can really, really look at your EBITDA real well and see how well your units are growing each month and year.
Mm.
Now, with our corporate locations, I can tell you this: we've done north over 2 million. And normally with client base wise, you're talking about between, let's say, 40 and 50 clients. See, sometimes people
Really?
believe,
That's it?
yes, yes, they believe you got to have 100, 200 clients. No, it's because of your business model.
Wow. That's incredible. Charles, if people listening think, you know what, I'm curious about in-home senior care. Where can I learn more? Where can I follow Charles? Where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me at charles at wisdomseniorcare.com. That's my email to come to me directly. Of course, wisdomseniorcare.com. And then my number is 919-615-0020. And I'd love to have a conversation with them just to talk to them about their goals and dreams and that they're really serious about in-home senior care.
I love that. Charles, thanks so much for hopping on today.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Neel. I enjoyed it. I appreciate it.